Hi, this is Autohaus Hamilton. I'm James. I'm here talking car parts, and today I'm going to talk about turbochargers. The reason for doing this talk is not so much that I want to sell you a turbocharger. It occurred to me when I was talking about turbo tie rod kits that many people have nothing more than a vague understanding that a turbocharger is something that helps you go faster. And I thought it would be interesting to look at how it is that a turbocharger helps you to go faster. So the first thing we need to talk about is the four cycles of a four-stroke engine. Now, if you want to be posh, you can call it induction, compression, ignition, and exhaust. But it's much easier to remember, and it sounds like much more fun to talk about suck, squeeze, bang, and blow. And in a normally aspirated engine, which is to say an engine that doesn't have a turbocharger or a supercharger to force feed them, and I'll talk about that in quite some detail later on. In a normally aspirated engine, there's a problem with suck, because what happens is inside the engine, a piston is going down, or if we're talking a flat six engine, it's going inwards, it's going away from the head, and that creates a vacuum, it creates negative pressure, and it's that partial vacuum that sucks the air-fuel mixture into the cylinder. Once it's there, the engine carries on moving, and that gets compressed in the squeeze. Then we have the bang as the spark fires, and that's the exciting bit. Now, the more air-fuel mixture we can have in the engine, the bigger the bang we're going to get, and a bigger bang has to be a good thing. So to get something for almost nothing, we use either a turbocharger or a supercharger. So the difference between those two things is that a turbocharger is driven by exhaust gases, and the reasoning goes that those exhaust gases are moving, but they're not doing anything useful for us. So if we put something in their way, we can capture that energy that would be lost in the moving expelled exhaust gases and use that to feed the engine. A supercharger works on a slightly different process. A supercharger works off a belt drive or a gear drive, and in the case of a supercharger, you do have some mechanical losses, some friction losses involved in making the supercharger do its thing. Now, both a supercharger and a turbocharger are essentially compressors, and what they're doing is they're compressing gas and then forcing it into the engine. Now, to show you how a turbocharger works, we can build one. We can build one out of this. So this is a toy that if you've ever seen a small child or know what a small child is, you'll know what this is. It relies on moving air to get a fan to work. And a turbocharger essentially takes two of these. So we'll build a supercharger. So we'll take one of these, which will become our turbine, and if my mastery of sellotape works, we will combine it with another one, which will then become our compressor. And incidentally, this is why on the back of some Mercedes-Benz cars, you'll see the word compressor. It doesn't mean there's no room for your legs, but it means that that car uses, in the case of Mercedes-Benz, a supercharger to compress air to force feed the engine. So now we've got two of these things linked. As moving air moves one of the sets of blades, the other set of blades is moved, and that in turn moves more air. Now, you'd struggle to really make a turbocharger out of this, but essentially that's what a turbocharger is. Only it's a bit heavier. So here is a 997 turbocharger. The black cast iron section is the bit that takes the exhaust gases, and the alloy bit that's at the top, that's the bit that does the compressing. So the bottom bit, as I'm holding it, is what's referred to as the turbine stage, and the top bit is referred to as the compressor stage. And if we look at the two stages of the turbocharger, this is what it looks like. So here are the blades on the turbine section. So this section is driven along by exhaust gases being pushed past them. So that turns, and if we look in the other side, as the turbine turns, so it turns the compressor stage, and that compressor stage is what does all the work. That compressor stage is the stage we're really interested in, because that's the stage that's compressing the incoming air charge, forcing more air into your engine. With a turbocharger, we almost get something for nothing. With a turbocharger, we get some pumping efficiency losses because of the fact that there is back pressure slowing down the exhaust gas on its way out. The advantage of a turbocharger or a supercharger is that during that the suck stage, the engine doesn't so much get a chance to suck, but as soon as it opens its mouth to take a breath, it's getting a big fat charge of air and fuel mixture smashed down its throat. It's a bit like sticking your head out of a moving car and taking a deep breath. You get a sensation of air being pushed down your throat and into your lungs. One of the terms you'll hear around turbochargers is that some turbochargers are variable vane turbochargers. And it just so happens that this turbocharger, which I'll just disassemble off camera, is a variable vane turbocharger. And inside the mechanism we have this ring which is moved by an external actuator, and as that ring moves, I'll just change the angle we're looking at here, you should be able to see the vanes on the inside of the turbocharger changing as that ring is moved backwards and forwards. Moving those vanes changes the angle at which the air is hitting the blades on the turbine. What you're changing is a thing called the aspect angle, which describes the angle at which the incoming air is hitting the blades of the turbine. At different speeds you want that angle to be different, and that's what that variable geometry is all about. A side effect of compressing the air, which the turbocharger or a supercharger does, is that the air gets warmer. A simple way to think about it is this. If you have a certain volume of air and you leave the amount of air constant but compress it, then the amount of heat within that air has to occupy a smaller space. So the air gets warmer. It's an effect you'll have noticed if you've ever used a bicycle pump. You'll feel that the bicycle pump gets warm to the touch as you're compressing air. You're squeezing that air, you're pushing the molecules against each other and making them bounce harder against each other. Now, although we're getting more air, we can utilize that air still better if we cool it, because we know that if we cool a gas, it contracts and we get, therefore, more gas, more molecules of air still in a certain volume, and getting performance from an engine is all about how much air we can pump through it. So we use a thing called an intercooler, which is basically a radiator for air, and that intercooler cools down the incoming air charge, makes it denser, and by making it denser means that there's still more of it, so we're getting yet more air forced into the engine as part of that suck stage. I'm going back quite some time now, but once upon a time I studied economics, and one of the first lessons in economics is that there's no such thing as a free lunch, which isn't so much a dietary ruling as a notion of the way the universe works. You never get something for nothing. What's great about a turbocharger is it's a good way of letting us get something, in this case increased performance out of an engine, for almost nothing. And the almost nothing that we have to pay for it is just that the pumping efficiency of the engine is reduced slightly. What's important is that what we're gaining, that forced induction into the engine, is worth more in terms of performance than what we're giving up in terms of the pumping losses by using the exhaust gases to do something for us. As ever, thank you very much for watching. If you have any comments or any feedback, I'd love to hear from you. Thank you very much.